There she beezles. Okay. I don't think that we have anything to review for office hours or Dr. Jen's availability or school email. Anybody? Bueller? Okay. We might have to change our skills weekend dates, but the staff will be visiting about that right after this lecture. So if there is a change, you will know very, very quickly. Okay. So let's knock some cobwebs off and start with open discussion or questions or reflections or rage. Maybe you hated, like absolutely hated something about the readings. That's fine too. And I know, Shoshana, you just expressed that you recently got some books, so that's okay. But yeah, let's just start there. How are we feeling about the readings, that how they're going so far?
Good. I have not had a chance to crack into the newest. It's sitting right here. The newest Fry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't cracked into that at all.
Okay. Okay. Well, we still got time. So don't worry about that you haven't yet. Do you feel like the readings have been helpful? I mean, you guys are a pilot program, so if I'm completely off the wall with the things that I'm assigning reading, other than like the load, because not too much adjustment I can do for the reading load, but do you feel like the reading sections are helpful and corresponding with the reading topics in the unit? Or do you feel like I'm like kind of off in left field with some of my reading?
Are you asking me?
In general, anybody?
Okay.
Anybody?
Yeah, everything's helpful. We've had I think it's helpful. We've been gradually getting to where we need to be to the actual birth part of it.
Yep.
Birth, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, chronologically, I think we're doing okay. It's just a lot.
It is.
It's just a lot.
Mm-hmm. But like I mentioned last lecture too, like you're gonna be revisiting these things again. Okay, so you don't have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb this time, because when we get into the units about concerns and abnormalities or non-physiological normal, we'll be revisiting a lot of the same sections. I'm sure you've noticed, like, there'll be a section and I'll just include like 15 of the 17 pages because the other 2 pages talk about things that are wrong or things that could be wrong. But yeah, it's a lot, but this is also building your reference library too. So yeah, do you feel like, and again, I'm not singling you out, this is an open question to anybody and everybody, do you feel like there was enough material to help with the buildup now that we're really getting into witnessing birth and supporting birth and observing it and all that?
Definitely. I think that was a lot in different ways to read it. I think it's going to help us to think a little bit outside the box when we come to that point when we start training and when we start doing on our own. And even if we're like doulaing right now, we can see these things.
Yep.
Definitely.
Awesome.
And totally advocating for the families if we're doulaing, like, I don't know. Whenever I doula, have been doula, I haven't had a client for about 6 months, but, um, yeah, the staff always knows that I know more than a doula should know.
Good,
Um,
good,
um, so yes, I mean, it's everything's gonna help us out, and the different versions that are we're reading now are definitely gonna help us.
good. Okay. I promise it looks like there's a lot of pieces on the board, which there are, but they're really going to make sense and fall into line when especially when we get to the skills weekend too. Okay. So, hang in tight with us. There's a method to my madness. um, anybody else? Did anybody else jump in? I can't see if somebody else jumps in. So is it just us? Just you three so far? Did anybody else pop in?
I don't think so. But I think Varney's is always harder for me to read. Um, yeah, I had to take breaks because I was like, this is really dense, technical, heavy medical language, and I think it's good and helpful to know because if we ever have to deal with like a transfer or whatnot, co-managed care, we'll probably have to use some of that terminology, but I had to put it down so many times because I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. But I finished all those readings, and I'm glad I did because I think I had already gone through some of them from previous units and already like marked things. I was like, oh, I already did that, and marked this part. So, and then yeah, I didn't mind the care of the well newborn. I think I like the tables that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
I tabbed those because I think those are going to be really helpful references. And I started like my little reference like list here of different pages to
Mm-hmm.
either I'm gonna probably what's that called, photocopy it when you print, yeah, photocopy it and like laminate it, or just keep it tabbed because there's yeah, some good I thought there were some good tables too in some of the readings that could be helpful. And I some of it I is completely new. I was like, oh, didn't even think about immune response and abnormal, all these kind of things that we had to read. So that's what I got from it was those charts and the tables. Those are going to be, I think, really helpful.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, Varney's it's a textbook, and it is across the board it is a professional standard and it's a good one. I mean, I when we started talking about textbooks, automatically I'm like, we are not doing human and labor development by Dr. Foot and blah blah blah. I'm like, that's another one that gets used a lot, and that is like purely that's an obstetrical textbook. This one, at least Varney's, is geared for midwives. So yeah, and it's hard. I'm glad you're taking it as chunks as you need it. Um, I don't know. It took me 4, 5, 6 times revisiting some of those things, but you're doing good. I know you're doing good. Did you get a haircut? It's super cute, or is it just pulled up differently?
No, it's a haircut.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep, I got a haircut. It's
super
like
cute.
14 inches off. Feels
Wow.
a new me.
Dang,
Yep. Yeah.
dang. Nice. Very cute on you. Anything for you, Cheyenne?
Yeah, I just gotta drag my big finger over and take the mic off.
Oh,
Figure out how to work this. But yeah, no, I was like, when you're talking about Varney's pearl, I was like, yep, yep, yep,
yep.
yep, yep. Like everything you said. But I see the balance between the holistic midwifery and Varney's. Like I wouldn't want my whole education to come from holistic midwifery. Like as much as I like it, I feel like there would be like some pretty big chunks missing. Like as hard as Varney's is to get through sometimes, like there's like definitely big pieces missing from the holistic midwifery ones. I haven't opened up the second one yet because I just got it. And I really like the physiology of birth one, just for like
Yeah.
all the pictures. because I'm
Yep.
like, yay, visual.
Yep.
And I was thinking the same thing about like copying pages, but then I didn't think of laminating them. But I thought if I could make my own binder of
Yeah.
stuff that I know I'm gonna need and I know I'm gonna use, and I don't have to flip through everything
Yeah.
to get to them. I thought that would be really, really helpful.
Yep.
And then going through the videos and like reading the textbooks, I'm like, oh my God, I was so wrong. I was like, and then I was going again and I'm like, oh my God, I was so wrong. Where did I read that? And then I was reading Barney's and I had the highlighted parts and I was like, somebody else has had this book before me and they've highlighted it. And I'm like, no, you read it already. It's like, settle down. But it was good. I finally felt like I had my foot in something. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yep.
I finally felt like I had taken a chunk out of something. And it was
Awesome.
good. Like as cross-eyed as I was and the headache and yeah. I ended up getting reading glasses too now because there's just like all the reading and the eye strain. But yeah. I like Barney's is really hard, but I can see like the need for it with the other ones. That's all.
Nice. Charts and creating our binders is something that I would like to do on the skills weekend too. And I have a laminator, so I will bring that. We will collaborate and then there's some extra resources that I plan on having printed off for you guys, a couple different resource books, booklets, stuff like that too. So creating your resource notebook, binder, however that you keep in your bag with you, prenatal bag, birth bag, all the time. That's one of the things that we will be spending time on the skills weekend too. So just as an encouragement, and yes, absolutely do though, collect and keep readily accessible the things that you find helpful repeatedly over and over and over again. Charts, notes, whatever that looks like for you guys. And I will bring my laminator and extra boxes of laminating plastic. And we'll have a great time with that.
Ooh,
And I'll have my mom make us popcorn. So it'll be fun.
nice.
Okay.
I just want to say I love that you're talking and waving a freaking pelvis around.
Oh.
You're
I can't see me. All I see is who's talking, so I don't know what I'm doing with my hands right now. So yeah. Yep. Thanks for reminding me. Okay. Okay, so let's get in. Let's get in. So again, we are focusing on physiological labor, undisturbed labor patterns. What we commonly call like butter births, good, bad, or otherwise. That's what we're focusing on. Okay. So just as a reminder, disclaimer, I don't want you guys to feel like we're leaving you hanging in the weeds about concerns or when things fall out of that, right? Because as traditional midwives, we are the masters of physiological birth. So we are focusing on that, right? So first topics, labor stages, progression. This is interactive and we're going to take our time on this. So jump in, interrupt me. I can't see when there's hands, emojis, emoticon, anything like that. So just pop in. Okay. We really, really, really want to make sure that you feel very, very confident that you got this down. Nothing is taking too much time to go over, to explain in another way. Let's really take our time with this because all this build up to this physiological labor patterns and understanding this portion is literally what's going to make the rest of seeing concerns easier. They'll pop right out. Okay, so I don't care if we don't get through all of my slides. I really, really, really want everybody to feel absolutely sure. And even if you haven't gotten to some of these readings, it doesn't matter. Let's take our time and let's do this chef's kiss. Joking. Too much coffee already, guys. Okay. All right. So early labor, and we're going to look at this. We're going to kind of repeat this a few different times and look at a few different ways, a few different infographics, but we're going to repeat this one. Might feel ad nauseum. So sorry about that. Okay. Early stage, for a lot of women tends to be the longest. Okay. Dilation less than 6, but here we're going to start seeing some patterns of different definitions. Okay. Because there isn't any one rule of what constitutes as the division, how each stage is divided up, more or less. I mean, stage 2 is pretty clear, you're pushing. Stage 3 is pretty clear, baby's out. But early, and I was just talking about, we're going to focus on physiological labor, but here I already go. Especially stage 1, very fluid. It can go back and forth. It can go all over the place. There's not a prescribed progression to this. Okay. As a general rule, and you'll see this in different infographics, this one says 5 to 7. Some say 5 to 20. Some say, all different kinds of things. But the most consistent, they're mild. They can be ignored. You can distract yourself. You can encourage them to go away. That's early labor. Sometimes this gets called prodromal labor, walking labor. Those kind of all fall into the similar categories. I don't really like saying prodromal labor because in my mind that already has a negative connotation to it. But sometimes that can be validating too. But we're not going to focus on that because, Jane, we're focusing on physiological labor. Okay. Active labor, this one says 6, some say 5. Some women might have an experience, like the hospital here in Bismarck will admit you in as active labor at 3 centimeters, which just blows my gourd. 3 centimeters, and you're saying you're in enough active labor to admit you. I have thoughts about that one, but we're not focusing on that one right now, Jane. The biggest shift between early labor stage 1 and active labor stage 1 is the pattern is more consistent. Okay, that the 3 to 5 minutes, it's consistent in a narrower window. Does that make sense? This is where you'll see recommendations of the 5-1-1 rule, 5 minutes apart, lasting a minute long for 1 hour. And contractions are starting to be more distracting. Okay, she can't just keep doing whatever and you don't even notice that they're happening. Oh yeah, I just totally had one. And she was, wrestling the dog outside. Okay. The end of first stage is where women can hit transition. Okay. Some women's transition is very blatantly obvious. Some women, even here, can be fluid. She might hit what you think could be a transition, and then all of a sudden she goes back into late stage, late active labor, and then she hits transition again. Okay, so it's still possible to be fluid. Again, that the frequency and duration, so how often they're happening and how long they're lasting, are in a narrower, more consistent window. Okay, this can be where some women throw up. This can be where they're like, I can't do this, I want to give up, like I quit. Okay. Some big hormone shifts are happening, so they can feel hot, cold, flushed, sweaty, nauseous. If they haven't already had diarrhea, they might experience that in this stage. Coping rituals that worked before might not work now. If she hadn't developed a coping ritual, she might be really trying to one now. Okay, second stage, pushing. Okay, pretty, well, I shouldn't say that, pretty obvious. I shouldn't say that, because in home birth, in hospital, it's pretty obvious. You know, they have to declare that you're complete and give you the go ahead and blah, 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 blah. In home birth, that can look a little differently, you know, especially for multips or grand multips. Second stage in primips looks very, very different. That can be where a lot of things happen. A lot of fears, concerns, unknowns, never done it before. Okay. Second stage for primips can be very long. Okay. Pushing is a learned skill. Those muscles have never had to do that before. And it can be very frustrating. And then third stage, placenta. Okay. There is a normal physiological stopping of contractions after baby comes out, between baby and placenta. Okay. And that stop can vary. Part of what my preceptor taught me was, whatever the frequency of the pushing stage contractions were, if you multiply that by 2 and then double that, that should be about, does that make sense? So if they were about a minute apart when she was pushing, and you double that and then double that again, you end up with 4. There should be at least a 4-minute pause before she's starting to, and I, over the years, I've kind of thrown that by that's one of my baggage, pieces of baggage from my preceptor that I've let go along the way. Because I don't like fast placentas. I like half-hour to 45-minute placentas. I actually don't like really fast placentas, but Jane, we're focusing on physiological normal. So half-hour, very, very normal, 15 minutes, half-hour. I would probably say that 10 to 20-minute mark between baby and the first 4th stage contraction is probably the most physiological normal range. There we go. Because we're focusing on physiological normal, Jane. Sorry, guys. Okay.
I just had an observation from one of the midwives I watched. She actually went in after about 20 minutes after baby was born, like 15, 20 minutes. She actually went in there with her hands and started
Oh
doing
my
that.
God.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't I was watching her and I went, is that what you do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
No.
some regulated states have a time limit. Okay, so some midwives in some regulated states, it literally says in their regulation that if you don't have a placenta out, you have to transfer. Okay.
Oh,
Some facilities have that as their policy, where if you don't have, if placenta is not out in 12 minutes, then per that facility's policy, then they have to start doing active 4th stage management. Okay, hello, goodbye. Okay, so majority of the time, that's why you're going to see that. Okay, now if they were trained that way, that's what they're comfortable with. That's what they know. And when I've been in peer reviews and I tell midwives, CPMs or CNMs, I'm like, yeah, my favorite is half-hour to 45 minutes. And like, what? You wait a whole half-hour to 45 minutes and nothing was wrong? And I was like, yeah, literally nothing was wrong. I'm like, that's my favorite time frame, because that's where I see the least amount of bleeding. That's, it, as long as the whole picture looks great. Okay, I really like that. I personally really like that. 30 minutes to 45 minutes. She had a break. I was able to get her comfortable. Full transfer of, placental blood, everything shutting off. There's probably a nice clot in the middle of the center of the placenta as it's starting to detach on its own. that's where I see the least amount of bleedings. You know, the uterus has had enough time to have some good 4-stage contractions, you know, because the first couple, half dozen, you know, depending on how she was hydrating or how tired she is, the first few 4-stage contractions are kind of weak, you know, but the muscles are tired and it's a totally different style of contractions. That uterus muscle has to totally reorder, and instead of like the pistoning down ones, now it has to be the squeezing in ones. So takes a little bit for them to be really effective ones. If she has like 1 or 2 weak 4-stage contractions and that's all it took for it to come off, and I'm like, okay, I'm already thinking, you know, might need some few tinctures, might need some more calories. You know, I like the ones that get stronger once baby's on the breast, once she's more upright. You know, that's telling me that uterus is really, the muscle has reorganized itself, and those are very effective 4-stage contractions. Okay, we're gonna look at it again. Okay, so this one calls it prodromal labor, 0 to 3 centimeters. Possible. That's possible. Okay. May have bloody show, maybe losing mucus plug. Depends on how gravid they are, how many times they've been pregnant. Okay, some dilation, some effective dilation could be happening. Okay. Multips and grand multips, lots of dilation, passive dilation can be happening. Like you could passively get to 5 or 6 centimeters, especially for multips and grand multips, before they really realize that they might even not be having any contractions yet. But you know, muscle memory is a thing. Those muscles already know and respond to that hormone shift. So they might.
So, you know, I tried yogurt and applesauce and he wouldn't eat them.
Okay, hold on. Just give me. I'm in lecture now, so try a little bit longer. Thank you so much. Okay. And a lot of us don't do cervical exams at this, so we don't know if they're at the 0 to 3 mark, if they're at the 0 to 4, 4 to 7, you know. And we'll talk more about that later too. What's my point? Where am I? Okay, active labor. Okay, so again, it's talking about the pattern is more consistent, right? That window of frequency is narrowing. Okay, rocking vocalization. So talking about the coping mechanism might become more active. Sometimes right before transition or right in transition, they get irritable, grouchy. This is kind of where the joke comes in about how only or how only vomit and diarrhea excites midwives. You know, you're at transition. You're probably at transition. If she's snapping at her husband, or she's vomiting, or she's, you know, all of a sudden she's experiencing diarrhea, like, oh yay! I don't know if I've ever seen those memes, but we do, because our feeds are full of birthy things. Okay. What's other things that stand out on this one that are different than the other one? Very, 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 very common for SROM to not happen until transition or pushing. Okay, we don't see a lot of early SROM. I like this one. Placenta can take up to an hour. I love that point. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, is that in transition, the 7 to 10 centimeters, is that where their voice goes like really low and they get kind of guttural during contractions? Like, because I was watching when I watched the videos, you could just tell like their voices would change.
Yep. Yep.
So that's transition.
Yep, the tones tend to go, even if they were using higher vocal tones in early active labor as part of their coping, then all of a sudden the tones start really going like, oh. The tones just start really starting to drop down. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Okay, anything else stand out to you guys on this one, this example? Okay, we're gonna look at it again. I just picked these examples that I liked, right? And also thinking about what's going to help your brain make sense of it too. So that's why we're just going to take our time and we're going to look at this over and over and over again. The only one that I really don't like about this is your water may break in early labor. That's kind of iffy to me. Okay, this one kind of differentiates between like menstrual like cramping and lower abdominal diarrhea, indigestion. Okay, because our hormones are changing, even if they ate recently, because our body's going to start, it's shifting its focus, right? So yes, we still need to eat, but all of a sudden she might be experiencing more heartburn or more reflux or more gastrointestinal distress. There we go. Okay. Where she might not fully vomit, but like that feeling is there. Okay. Very normal. Yep. Modesty starts for most. Okay. So not that that you guys might ever support communities that have very strict modesty teachings, but I know Jade has experience where she's literally never going to take her dress off ever, and you don't even get to like move her dress up as she's crowning. Like you're going to be delivering by braille. So, but for most women, okay, even if they're getting in and out of the pool, they might get in t-shirt and shorts and then in and out and go to the bathroom and in and out, and then all of a sudden like she doesn't bother putting her shorts on after she goes to the bathroom and just like beelines it back to the pool. Okay, that's a change in modesty. That can be all that you notice. That could be the only change, but that's a progression of labor. Mm-hmm. Yep, bloody shoe. Okay. Okay. Contractions get longer. This is where is this the first one that we see the resting phase? Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the first one that we see the mentioning of resting phase. Doesn't happen for everybody. The rest and be thankful phase can be very confusing because those transition contractions are coming in hot. You never get a break, and then all of a sudden she's snoring. And the dad's like, what's going on? Did labor quit? And I've literally been in situations where we're hanging out at the side of the pool and they're right on top of each other, 2 minutes apart, 70 seconds long, like freaking clockwork. And then all of a sudden, it's like, what? That one kind of took a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden, she's leaning over the pool and snoring. And dad's looking at me like, what the heck? And I literally was like, it's okay. It's okay. Because I knew where we were at, right? And in my mind, I was like, she's going to wake up, ready to push. Okay. It's awesome when you get to see this because you know where it's at and you're like, okay, She's gonna get about 20 minutes of snoring to the point where she's drooling on herself. 10 to 20 minutes. And then she's gonna wake up just roar pushing. And it's pretty cool when you get to see it. Not gonna lie. Even if they don't get to the point where they get to like have a hard nap, if you're timing them, most of the time I'm not by now, but if you are still timing them through an app or whatever, and you see all of this, like if they're like 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes for like 45 minutes, an hour or whatever, but then all of a sudden they jump to like 7 minutes apart, 8 minutes apart, that's probably the resting phase. Okay. Because right after that, if this is following a normal physiological pattern where it's just going to keep progressing, and we'll talk more about things like other reasons why that could be happening, but then all of a sudden they're 12 minutes apart after an hour of 2 minutes apart. Okay, that is a rest phase. And most likely what you're going to see, and we'll explain it more when we talk about cardinal movements, why this happens. Most likely what you're going to see is nonstop pushing contractions. Anything on this one stand out to you guys?
That's cool that you spend time to reassure the support person or the husband that's there that this is all normal and not to panic.
Yeah, because I mean it can look really weird. Like they were literally 2 minutes apart, and she was kind of on the fringe of not being able to continue to cope, and then all of a sudden she's literally drooling on the side of the pool snoring.
There are strange things that delight your daughter.
Yeah, there are.
I really like that.
Hey, Maris.
Hey, sorry, I almost slept. I've been on for a while now, but it's our week at language camp we have going on our res, and it's outside. It's like so nice, but all that air makes
Getting
you,
zapped by the sun.
yeah.
Yep.
Then I came home and took a quick nap, and I like woke up and I was like, holy, it's already 10 at 7. It's just but when I was at a birth the other night, and you know, I kind of, with the sounds and noises, a lot of the time what I do is, if it's like, sometimes you don't want to stay too close and like bug them and interrupt that whole process. You kind of want to give them space and let them do their own thing. So I'll sit outside the door and like try to fall asleep if I'm like, if it's whatever time. And I will listen, and then you really can like hear just from being out there, like when that shift happens, and then that noticeable rest and be thankful phase where like they were coming and coming, and then all of a sudden it's like back out to 5 minutes, and then that sound is just very distinct. And I appreciate when bursts happen like that, because it kind of gives you that heads up, like, okay, it's time to go. She's getting like, or she's already complete, or like very, very much there to start pushing. And that's one of the things in like when you get into bursts and you notice that, is so helpful to kind of gauge where they're at.
Yep. So the very first, did Jay jump on yet? I can't see who's joining. Obviously, I didn't see when you joined. The very first birth that Jade and I got to be at together, we were sitting on the couch. The birth pool was set up in the living room. And where you sat on the couch and you looked out, the living room, rest of the living room and the birth pool was like kind of to the left and the kitchen was kind of to the right. And then the little hallway between the two and around the corner was the bathroom. And the mom was kind of like hanging out in the pool and laboring. And, you know, it was a cool, you know, her and I were just chilling on the couch. And all of a sudden she's like, I think I gotta go to the bathroom. And she wasn't, I think this was her fourth or fifth kid. Fourth, I think. And she's like, yeah, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm gonna get out and go to the bathroom. And she hadn't really been overly vocal or overly anything in the pool, just kind of vibing with her husband. And and Jade was primary. And she's like, okay, cool. So they walked down, didn't put her shorts back on when she got out. Okay, so change in modesty. Down the hall, around the corner to the bathroom, and we're just listening. And all of a sudden, we just heard her have a contraction in the bathroom. I'm like, okay. And then we heard another one. And I literally grabbed the gloves and I put them on Jade's arm and I shoved her up. And she was bearing down and starting, you know, just about crowning, just being on the toilet, and just that change in that sound. She did make it back into the pool, but that was hearing that change. And I'm like, yep, you gotta go. You're going down the hallway. Hey, look at it again. We're gonna take our time through this. We're really, really, really gonna understand this. I really wanted to find multiple different layouts to figure out what's gonna help you best retain, and the variability. Like every single one of those, yes, there's similarities, but there's slight variabilities in whoever made this. I didn't make these because I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. Whatever their definition of each of these stages breakdowns, yes, similarities, but some slight differences. Okay, because birth is not a machine, and it's true. Okay, so this one calls it preparatory activity. I was like, okay, that's a cool way to think of it. Sometimes you see them called practice contractions. I personally can't stand using Braxton Hicks, and it has nothing to do with like, why are we naming women's things after men? That's not why. It's the negative connotation of like, those are fake, they're not doing anything. No, doesn't matter what it's looking like, cramping and contractions is always doing something. It's either helping the body get ready, or it's telling you that the body needs something more. Okay, so I personally choose to really steer away from the vernacular of Braxton Hicks, because especially a lot of women's previous experiences, they kind of get pushed off. Oh, those are nothing. Those that's fake, false labor, fake labor. Those are just Braxton Hicks. And I'm like, nah, they're doing something. They're either telling you need something, or they're trying to help you get ready to do something. So that's my personal beef with the label of Braxton Hicks. Anyway, not the point, Jane. We're talking about physiological labor. So what's this one say? Okay, 511 or 411 rule. Hard labor. Yep, transition. Okay, this one's talking about double peaking, transition contractions. They get called double peaking, but sometimes what can happen is like they're so close together, there actually is a crest down, but because the tension in the uterus never fully leaves, this is where you can see, it never stops. There's no breaks. And those tend to get labeled as double peaks. There are times when the sensation of double peaking can be talking about baby being kind of a wonky position. But there are times when that sensation, or what's perceived as double peaking, is a physiologically normal pattern for that labor. Okay. I really like the last bullet on the transition. Woman enters an altered state of consciousness and may be rude. I like that one. Okay. Yeah, resting phase, active pushing, crowning to birth. I like this one that it breaks up into different types of pushing. Okay. I think I might have have broken it down to 3 different. There's like intuitive pushing, spontaneous pushing, and productive pushing. And all of them can be doing different jobs. Right? Anybody notice anything particular off of this one? It's not a trick. I'm just wondering. It's not a. I don't expect an answer or have like a point. I really want to take our time and really want to make sure that you guys feel really assured and solid on physiological labor patterns. Progression. We're not in patterns yet. Progression. What? Oh, I meant to. Okay, now we're going to get into patterns. Okay, so anything about stages and progression? Anything you want to expand on? Anything you want to revisit? Anything from the readings that you want to clarify or feel like there might be some conflict or?
So when it says like hard labor, that's just like that's still a part of stage 1 because they're not yet transitioned. So is it just like breaking up the different parts of labor
Yeah.
a little bit more?
Yep,
Yeah.
this one's breaking it up into 4 different progressions before transition.
Okay.
Yep.
And when you're educating families, you get to kind of decide what language you use or how much you break that down for them, right? Is that kind of?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think it's helpful to, when you're first starting to support families, I do think it's helpful to kind of have a CBE script. And then once you get more comfortable, once it becomes more fluid dialogue to you, and then you can easily tailor it to her experiences or what they're specifically looking for. Your script and how you describe it will change. And that's where I got really far away from using the term Braxton Hicks because I had
Yeah.
Al, and as soon as I used that word, I could just see it in her face. She shut down and felt defeated and like, early labor is never, well, why? How did it go? It almost threw up like a communication barrier between us because I was talking with her about making sure that we're communicating early. Well, if it's just going to be false labor, like, why would I bother you with it? And I'm like, okay, note to self, we're not talking about Braxton Hicks in that way.
You're reminding me that, medically and academically, those physicians are busy making a name for themselves for something that they can publish about. And that's how a lot of those terms stick. And you know, it's a lot of men making a name for themselves and not
Yeah.
legitimate to the women's experience. So that's
Yeah.
beautiful that you've translated it that way. That really helps me wrap my head around these things differently. Thank you.
Yep. I started referring to it as like practice contractions, you know, because if you bring in the analogy, it's kind of popular. If you bring in the analogy of like, well, you wouldn't run a marathon without training for it, and labor's like a marathon, which is true. Okay, so then you practice. So then every one of these sessions,
Mm-hmm.
especially for first time moms, or first time
Mm-hmm.
home birthers, because if they had an induction before, their body doesn't know how to create that pattern on its own. So it needs some practice runs.
Mm-hmm.
So then I noticed my vocabulary just started developing into like, well, it's practice, they're practice contractions. It's testing it out, you know, and then that was it was a, not easier, but it was a more fluid segue if we had to have conversations around tincture or herbal use or something like the Miles circuit, where if that practice, if that session of practice contractions is receptive to becoming active labor
Mm-hmm.
versus like, well, it's just false labor, so let's not do anything about it.
Blah blah blah.
Beautiful. Blah, blah, blah.
Yep. Okay, so anything else about stages and progression? We feeling really sorted? Okay, so contraction patterns. What's going on? What's all going on? Okay, so early labor, we're still joking around. We're still like, oh, let's do the dishes, let's do some laundry, let's do like, I didn't get all my nesting done. Oh yeah, I just had one. Um, you know, they're happening, but she's easily going along daily tasks of, well, let's time them. Oh, I don't think they're really happening. Like, hey, for me, when I'm supporting, this is still in like the texting communication of like, oh, let's see what's going on. Where especially if they're primips, and if they're like, I don't know, it just came out of me and it's a chunk of mucus plug. Well, I don't know. I think I'm having like menstrual. It kind of feels like I'm having menstrual cramps. Like, well, you can't be having menstrual cramps because you're pregnant. So, and I'm not saying it in like any way about it, but internally changing the labeling of like, well, no, might be contractions. So let's time them and see if there's a pattern.
There's the pic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some midwives have apps that they prefer, that they recommend, because they want screenshots, and then they want it's easier. They know how to read it already. I would recommend check a few out, you know, because some of them just give you the average, and some of them will break it down to frequency and duration, and it's good to know which ones are which, because averages don't help me.
Yeah, my mom inside the bathroom.
Okay, thank you for telling me. Okay. What else we got going on here? Okay, so active labor, that frequency and duration window is narrowing and becoming more consistent. This is where, you know, she's stopping, she's focusing. She might not yet have a coping ritual developed, but she's not able to just continue on with whatever she had been doing. Okay. Transition, okay, the frequency, duration, even more consistent. Those windows are narrowing. Irritability, vomiting, diarrhea, loss of appetite. This is where sometimes you just have to like kind of force feed them, more or less. When you get the rest and be thankful phase, even if it's not big, like a big long interrupted sleep, 10 minutes and then one wakes her up and then she can sleep between, and then that's still a rest phase. Okay. Okay. Here this one I just want to clarify about what are we talking about frequency and duration. Okay, so frequency is the start of the beginning of one contraction to the beginning of the next contraction. Okay, and this can be where it's kind of hard with apps. Like you really, if you want to look through apps, timer apps, to have one in your Rolodex to recommend, you have to make sure that, and this is why I don't like the ones that do averages. I want to see the actual pattern. Like I want to see the individual timestamps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then this is also can be a really hard point of clarification with first time moms. Well, how are you timing them? Okay, because sometimes they'll say, well, they're 8 minutes apart, lasting for 2 minutes. Okay, well, what's your out of 10? Where are you rating these? Oh, like a 2. Okay, well, describe to me how you're timing them. Well, I'm just using a stopwatch. Okay, well, let's talk about getting an app timer. I was gonna kick out of these faces. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I'm easily amused by emojis, obviously. Okay.
Why doesn't she look like she's enjoying her pushing?
Hey.
I don't know how long my internet will be, but we'll see what happens. I tried to align it properly.
Probably because she's a grand multip and she knows it's almost over. Because when you get those grand multips that once they realize they're in this stage and they just lean into it and then it's over in 4 contractions.
And they're like, heck yeah.
Like, get it, girl. Okay. Okay. The $64,000 question. Am I in labor? Well, I don't know. Tell me what's going on. Okay. Is the pattern regular? Okay, but we also know that in early labor, it could be true active early labor, there still can be some irregularity. So just falling on that question alone might not be helpful. Okay. Well, how do you feel? Okay. Are you able to, do they stop you in your tracks? This is where it can be helpful to call them on, like, well, can you call me? And if they talk through them and like, oh yeah, I've had 3, we'll be on the phone. Like, okay, I'm not coming yet.
You're fine.
We're okay.
Fine.
Okay. But if she's stopping and like labored breathing on, or or the husband's calling because she can't be on the phone, like, yeah, this might not go away. Okay. Can you do anything to change the pattern? Like, and this includes your recommendations too. So eating, hydrating, sleeping. Later on, we'll talk about some supplemental recommendations. But for physiological undisturbed labor, the basics of, well, when did you eat? Have you slept? Are you hydrating? Take a bath, try and take a nap. Oh yeah, they spaced out, or oh yeah, they went away. Sorry, I forgot to call you 4 hours later. Like, okay, well, that wasn't active labor. Or it wasn't a pattern that was gonna turn into active labor, is a better way to say it. Okay, any questions about this? This one was kind of short, but we're really just expanding on the stages and progressions. Okay. Because to move into the different stages, it has to sequentially progress. Anything that anybody wants to go back over? Really, we're gonna take our time. This is, instead of doing big long honking exams, this is what we're gonna do to make sure you have it. Okay, so what else is going on? Okay, because patterns are cool, but how do they become effective that results in baby? But first, okay, there's a shift that has to happen before dilation even matters, I guess you could put it that way. From this picture alone, can anybody guess what the change is?
Cervix.
Yep, cervix position. Okay, a posterior cervix versus an anterior cervix.
With some effacement and a tiny bit of dilation.
Yep, in this picture, but not always true with just a shifted cervix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does everybody see where we're talking about? I don't have a pointer. Do I have a pointer? I don't think I have a pointer.
No, not on Zoom.
Yep. Okay. So in this picture, the cervix is red. So in the if you look in the posterior, cervix is closed and it's pointed towards the rectum in the back of the vagina. Okay, that's a posterior cervix. Now, the cervix can shift forward before dilation has started, most likely in multips and definitely in grand multips because the body knows what's coming. Okay. For primips, usually doesn't happen until baby has dropped into the pelvis. Okay, and then if you see on the anterior picture, the cervix is pointed towards the perineum and it's in kind of the middle of the vault of the vagina, and dilation and effacement has started. Okay.
And if you look at the positioning of baby's head,
Yeah,
you can see why in the posterior baby, there's not a lot of head circumference applied to that cervix. So it's deep and in the posterior and nothing's really happening. Whereas with the anterior baby, almost the entire length of the head is applied to that cervix. And so it's able to efface and dilate and be more in the midline.
Yep.
Which is why we try to position you before your water breaks and before things get too crazy.
Yep. Okay, so just if a mom asks you if you decide to use perinatal cervical checks, okay, or 36 or 38 weeks or 41 weeks, or if she's wanting a membrane sweep, okay, just feeling the difference of a closed posterior cervix and a closed anterior cervix can be very, very telling of, even if baby's position, even if baby, okay, so for the posterior cervix, even if the only thing that was different in that picture was the position of the cervix, that is a very, very different situation that could be receptive to things like the Miles circuit or
Herbs, pumping, positional changes.
well, I'm trying to think of just physiological normal or physiological encouragements.
Forward leaning inversions.
There you go. Forward leaning inversion, sideline release, that intercourse. That is a much more receptive cervix than a posterior cervix. Okay. So then effacement, right? Thinning of the cervix. versus, and in usually not in primips, but in multips and definitely in grand multips, a lot of effacement can happen before dilation happens. Not usually the case with primips. Okay, now I can't see myself, so I don't know how helpful. Where am I in this? If you guys check your Atlas of Life like PDFs, where do I have to go to adjust?
Down,
Okay.
down. Right there.
Okay. So
are you wanting just cervix?
Nice.
Lift it up about an inch.
yeah, just cervix. So in this one, we
Okay.
can see the dilation has happened before effacement has happened. Okay, this is probably a primip. Maybe. Okay, no hard and fast black and white rules, but most likely, because especially in primips, effacement is really dependent on baby's station and position.
And you're probably going to get to 80% before you see real dilation all the way through the cervix. You might see
Yes.
dilation at the outlet of the cervix.
Hold on. That's next. You're 2 pictures ahead of me, woman. Hold on.
Give me some external laws.
No, we'll get there. We'll get there. Hold on. Okay. So, back up a second there, Twinno.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay, so here just basically another reiteration of especially in primips and especially in women who have previously had inductions. Okay. Effacement is going to be really, really dependent on station and position. Okay, because that cervix doesn't know, the muscle memory is not there to passively efface just with hormone response and baby dropping into the pelvis and having a little bit more pressure on the forewaters. Okay. It usually really, really takes a completely contacted head onto the cervix to get that going. Okay. Now, here we go. Multips.
My multip.
Yep. Okay. So internal Oz, external Oz can dilate at different rates. Okay. Especially for multips, and grand multips are just weirdos. They're just weirdos.
Yeah. Don't even check them. Don't even bother.
Yeah, don't even bother, because they can go from 20% and a 4 to a baby in 47 minutes. So don't bother checking them. Ask Jade how she knows. Okay.
Yeah. Ask me how I know.
Okay. So multips, grand multips, a lot of passive dilation can be happening with a floaty baby and a non-existent or irregular pattern. Just a little bit of shift of the forewaters pressure and uneven Oz dilation can be happening. Okay. They could be losing, so the top multipara, she's probably been losing chunks of mucus intermittently for days or weeks. Oh, does baby feel lower? No, not really. Okay. Well, you're probably having external dilation happening more than internal dilation.
And if you were to check her external Oz may be a 3 or a 4, but her internal is a 2, which means she is only a 2.
Yep. Okay. Any questions so far? We're really going to take our time. Any thoughts, any questions? Want to go back over anything?
Is this the same for like if the front of the cervix is a little bit more dilated, like than even the back
Yes. So
cervix.
that would be the external Oz,
Yeah.
which is what you can feel with your fingers when entering the vagina.
Yeah.
The internal Oz is from the mouth of the uterus to the edge of the vagina, to the entrance of the vagina from the cervical canal itself.
Yep. And if you choose not to do a lot of internal exams, this
You're-
happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
And you're
happens
probably
all
never going to feel it.
You're probably
Mhm.
never going to feel it. I haven't felt this since I was a student because my preceptor did this all the time. So, and so then sometimes when clients or other midwives, oh, well, what do you do to resolve lips and asynclitic dilation? I'm like, wait,
Put him to bed.
tell her, yeah, like nothing. I don't do anything. I don't check. I'm like, I'm sure that I've had tons of asynclitical dilation. I don't check that much to know. Okay, because oh, hold on, I'm one ahead of me. Okay, so this is cute. This is, you know, can be helpful, visual, a little bit of shock value, you know, a little bit. Make sure you call your mother on her birthday and Mother's Day because this is what happens. But it's not, but this is
Because you were a bagel.
this is the angle. This is a more helpful angle, right? Because this is the actual angle that we're kind of going for, but still not fully helpful because
Right.
muscles are not machines. This is really what it's going to feel like. Okay? Because if we go back, well, here, if this baby is trying to come down and around, okay, yeah.
Hold on.
Okay, here, this one. That anterior baby, that anterior lip of the cervix is going to get a lot more pressure for a lot longer than a posterior lip. Right? So if someone's checking and they're only checking the anterior lip, and especially if we keep in mind that we're not going to dilate in a perfect circle, and this is in my opinion, this further is the argument of why labral cervical checks are mostly pointless, almost always pointless, 99.97% of the time pointless.
Especially in primates.
Yeah, because look at this cervix. Tell me where I gotta go.
Go up about 2 inches.
Okay. Good.
Up higher. Up.
Jeez.
Keep going.
Holy
Stop.
crap.
No, go down, go down.
Okay.
Oh, your camera's trying to get it.
Oh, because my face is looking.
Yes, yeah, right there.
Hide my face. Okay. So, but look at this cervix.
Okay, pull it back a little tiny bit.
I think the camera's trying to look at the baby's face.
The baby is trying to find it's definitely trying to
Hold
find
on.
the baby's
Let me
face.
take this is so dumb. Apple is so dumb. How do I take off my How do I take off my face finder?
You had it.
Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
All right. All we're looking at is the cervix.
Oh,
Cervix?
whoa.
Okay. If I was checking the cervix every hour, oh, you're so uneven. Oh, we got to do all the things. Oh, we could take a walk. Or we could
Get
wait.
something to eat and go to bed.
Yeah, or you could go to bed. You know, I mean, that's only a 2. That you know, half dilated. Well, but if you only feel the front of the cervix versus the back of the cervix,
You might say 3,
cervix, yeah, maybe 3.
depending on how fat your fingers are.
Well, that's the other thing. My 3 looks different than Jade's 3 because my hands are twice the size of hers. Okay, which furthers my argument. Anyway, we're not going down that road, Jane, because we're talking about physiological normal. Okay, so we're not going to dilate in a perfect circle. That's physiological normal. Because we're going to move and we're going to sleep and we're going to be getting in and out of the pool and we're going to go to the bathroom and we're going to huddle up with the man and, you know, we're going to take the dog. We're going to walk around. We're gonna do some curb hopping while we're walking the dog, and muscles aren't perfectly symmetrical. So I would also argue that all dilation is asynclitic, but everybody gets bent out of shape. Oh my God, asynclitic lip. The worst thing to ever happen. Okay, I'll get off that soapbox. Any questions about, did I make a point? I'm not sure. Any questions
Yes.
about what we're talking about here? Effacement and
Just my own curiosity on that anterior posterior image.
This
Where
one?
would face, what, yeah, where were you? Where's the face presentation?
Oh, that is not physiological normal. We're not talking about face presentation.
Oh,
That's
okay.
definitely not physiological normal.
Well, thank you. I'm apologize.
Nope, it's fine. I'm just saying. We'll
Yeah,
get into that. Okay.
I apologize for
That's
the
okay.
disruption.
Nope,
Okay.
it's okay. Anything else? Questions, reflections you want us to go over? Anything? We're really gonna focus on taking our time with this because this is literally the culmination of all this lead up, and then this is the foundation of everything following after this.
I'd be curious if anybody wants to comment which one of the images helps you click into like a, you know, like a take it home piece of information. Did I say that right? Because
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're showing multiple images and multiple lists and the characteristics. I appreciate that, but is there somebody that can say which one is really working for you? Which list or flow chart?
Okay.
I would say that the big takeaway I would want people to have
Suggesting the crabby baby.
is to look at how the head is applied to the cervix, because that's really
Grand
what
mal
matters.
A
That's
lot.
yeah, that's really what matters when you're looking at how a labor pattern is going to go. Is that baby flexed and well applied?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, but station is what's going to progress it and get it into active
Yes,
or an active
as they move through the pelvis.
Yep. So station is going to what's going to progress it and turn it into active labor and move it into pushing stage and end up with a baby. Okay? So what are we talking about with station? Okay? We see this one. It's helpful and it's true. But my brain does a little bit better with this one because that's really, you know, it's not a straight tube. Okay.
And the curvature of the pelvis matters.
Yeah. It matters. Otherwise, why would we define it into 4 different shapes of a pelvis? Right?
Mhm.
And why would we bother with figuring out what position is if it didn't matter for this curve?
Mhm.
Okay. And this is why we get asymmetrical dilation, and why I would argue that asymmetrical dilation is totally fine and probably what the body wants to do. You know,
Mhm.
nice
Especially if you can
pelvic curve.
prioritize those periods of rest.
Yeah. Yep. Because that curve it can, and especially, and depending on what, and we'll get into this too, depending on which position they enter into the pelvis, yeah, it matters. So for my ADHD brain, I like this picture.
Mhm.
And I would say that the tube, if you have a baby that's -3, that baby is nowhere close to being born.
Yeah.
And when you look at 0 station, it looks like it's beneath the pubic bone in the straight up and down sample use. But when you look at the curvature of the pelvis, you see that at 0 station, they still have to come underneath the brim,
Yep. Can you
which
see?
is
You guys see my
really,
pelvis?
really important.
Can you see my pelvis?
Yes.
Okay. So
From the brim, twin.
right there. Okay. So, and you can't, but the zero station is these ischial spines right here, right? So babies resting at the brim, I need tape to hold their hands because we don't want flailing hands like that. But if we're resting at the brim right here, right? It's a -3 baby. You can still feel a differentiation, and again, don't feel like we're hanging you out in the weeds. This will all come together, especially at the skills weekend. Okay, so when we're palpating and we can still feel a differentiation between the pubic bone and the baby's head, okay, she could offer me $1 million and I'm not going to check her cervix. I actually don't care what her cervix is doing, right? But once we can tell that that baby's head is to the ischial spines, I can't palpate the difference between head and pubic bone. All I can feel is shoulder. I feel pubic bone and shoulder. Then I might want to know, depending on how she's coping, depending on what the pattern looks like, I might want to know what's going on with the cervix.
That's good.
Well, you can't have the baby. You took the
That's a helpful clarification there for visually for me.
Yep. So then here's another general breakdown. Okay. Again, nothing black and white. This is particularly helpful for primates. This is particularly helpful for creating conversation with them, because if they're absolutely convinced that they have the most pressure in their rectum that they've ever felt in their entire life.
But baby is -4.
Yeah, but baby is -4 or -2. Okay. And we're getting a little bit off track of physiological labor because to some degree, physiological labor is implying uninterrupted, the quintessential butter birth, which is true. Okay. But we're also, again, in the mindset of training you like midwives, these are all the things that are going through our mental Rolodex with these conversations. And when you're trying to, suss out and evaluate what she's reporting to you, there's a whole different set of internal questions and checklists that are going off in our mind too. Okay.
How's that cute boy?
Okay. Any questions about this? And then here's the comparison of what we usually see, the textbook picture that we usually see with the pelvis split in half, and what's actually more physiologically apt. Of course, it's in lithotomy position, so not super apt for us traditional midwives, but we do the best we can with what we got.
So the pressure in the rectum puts the baby at -4?
No.
No. They're nowhere near the rectum at -4.
Yeah.
But you might have a multip or a primip rather. You'll have a first-time mom that says, "Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much pressure in my bottom," and you don't see any evidence of that.
And then you palpate baby, and you can clearly feel markers.
The baby is high and floaty, and you can still feel its head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think what's interesting about these two pictures, if you look at +1 on the image on the right, it looks like there is a lot more surface area of the baby's head applied.
Yep.
When really the picture on the left, you see that there's really just about a quarter of head applied. Yep. And that's significant.
Because that's real life.
Yeah, that makes a huge bit of difference if you're going to be somebody that does either routine cervical checks or somebody that says, like Jane and I, where we might ask to check a cervix, if we might find that information helpful in moving forward. you know, figuring out where your baby is to figure out where to move forward. And if they don't want to wait, like if they're not receptive to just rest, you have a baby that's +1, that's, you know, a finger width into the vagina. So you've got your finger in there, and I can't see with my, hold on, there we go. So let's say my finger is, where is it going? Imagine the length of your finger is at the introitus to the baby's head. That might be +1. And you think that 2.5, 3 inches doesn't make a whole lot of difference. But if you've only got a quarter of that baby's head presenting at that +1, you've still got a tremendous ways to go.
Mhm.
And this baby is pretty, well, the baby on the left is pretty well flexed, but the baby on the right, I can still see space in between the chin and the chest. So that baby's going to have a tougher go at things.
Mhm.
Even though they're technically still facing in the same direction.
Mhm.
So in the caption from this picture, supposedly this is the same image generated. It's just the point is the angle. Look at how.
No way.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But point stands. Like how your brain can, because most of us, we're never going to have ultrasound imaging, right? So how we can train our brain to picture these images between what our hands are feeling and then what she's reporting, it's a skill, and that's what we're working on. Okay, any other thoughts on this one? Okay, so now what are all the layers? Okay, we're facing and dilating, we're station. Okay, but the driving force to all these is position, right? Okay. That's not what okay. So I thought I had a different order. Anyway, real quick, just a different image. Maybe this one feels more helpful to your brain than other ones that we've seen in the books and slides. Okay. And it's practice, right? And we will get some practice at the skills weekend. I have a really cool plan of how to practice palpating on a non-live pregnant, and hopefully we will be able to create some live experience, but that's not always the case. Anyway, point being, if you feel, and obviously like we've said before, if you feel these images are helpful, print them off, keep them around, right? It takes a minute to connect the pictures that you're able to conjure up in your brain and what you're feeling. Okay, right now you don't get the feeling part, so right now we just have to, and maybe having a baby, having a pelvis, you can find mini ones. Supposedly this is a life-size one. I'm gonna say no. That's definitely not my pelvis. Okay, but it can be helpful, and there's a couple different tool options out there too. You can find mini ones on Etsy that are really reasonably priced. Or I know a couple of you have said that you've found really good YouTube videos. Okay. It takes practice. That's my point. There you go, Jane. Find the point. It takes practice. This takes practice. This is a whole nother language to be fluid in. Okay. Where is baby's back? That's, which direction is the back pointed towards is really where this is deriving from. Okay. And then this is how does this translate into the pelvis? What is really baby's position when you can't feel the head? Right? Because sometimes you get, especially multips, grand multips, they might be into the pelvis at 38, 40 weeks. Sometimes you might get to see her early in labor where you feel that progression. Sometimes you might not. Okay. In the beginning, maybe just dividing it up into 4 quadrants might be helpful. Okay. And then this one I included because it's giving you the image from the bottom of the pelvis.
Which is what you'd be feeling if
Yeah.
you were doing a sterile vaginal exam.
Yep. Okay. Real quick, how do we do this? Okay, we can use Leopold's.
My favorite.
Yep. But if you get there in heavy active labor and she doesn't want to lay long enough, or if she doesn't want to be touched like that, okay, asking where are you feeling kicks, or where did you feel movements, or what side feels heavier? So sometimes you can get a pretty good idea just by verbal describing. Okay. And you can actually get a pretty good idea based on where you're getting heart tones with your Doppler. Okay. I think this might be like the worst pregnant drawn abdomen ever. I wish I could find a better picture of this one, but yeah, okay.
You should draw one.
No, because it'd be worser. It'd be way worser.
We should.
You
Redraw one.
should.
You have quintuplets.
Right. Okay. Anything? We're gonna take our time, guys. If you want anything described more, go back, walk through more. We're really just okay. Anything at all. Okay, so what are we wishing for? Okay. In our wild midwifery fantasies, we love those LOAs. We love them. Okay. In the literature, we probably have come across LOA babies, L babies are more able to flex more before they enter into the pelvis, because the majority of women, overwhelmingly the statistic majority of women, the left side of the uterus is more curved than the right side. Okay, if you really want to dive deep into that hole, there's no consistent reasoning why. Some people are like, oh, well, we drive with our, it flattens the side because every pregnant woman pushes the gas pedal with their right. I don't know. There's all kinds of weird whatevers. Okay, but not the point. Point is, in this hemisphere, because in Asia there does seem to be statistically more, still not like a huge majority. Again, not the point. Jane, what's the point? Okay, we really like those LOA babies. Okay.
It's the shortest distance for them to engage in the pelvis.
Yep.
With the way the musculature is set apart.
Yep. So they can come into the pelvis more flexed. Okay. It's the shortest arc to rotate to get into the AP diameter for crowning. Okay. The least amount of movement. So into the pelvis, mid pelvis, and then outlet of the pelvis. Okay. It is the easiest way for the baby's shoulder to slide underneath the arc of the pelvis. Okay, so if we got the LOA baby, okay, ignore the arms because I can't hold the arms right now. Okay, we got the LOA baby coming into they can totally tuck their chin because the curve of, can you guys see what I'm doing?
Yes.
Okay. Follows the curve of the uterus, comes into the pelvis, okay, hits those ischial spines, and it's the shortest, except for this baby, it's the shortest curve for then extension and flexation to happen. And we'll talk about cardinal movements, but this is just the preface of it, okay? Because then baby has to extend and flex under the arc for crowning. Okay, now, again, not to say that babies coming into the inlet in different positions aren't possible. They happen a lot. Birthable, great, but we're talking about the physiological ideal, our butter bursts, with the least amount of assistance or intervention. Okay. And again, lots of different reasons why babies come into other sides of the pelvis, and we'll get into more of that too. We're not leaving you hanging. I promise, I promise, I promise. Oh, there we go. We took care of the why. Okay, any questions?
I have a question. So you are able to tell the position, like baby is LOA or ROA or right occiput posterior, all those things from doing these from palpating. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Palpating and then confirming with where are you finding the loudest heart tone.
Yep.
Okay.
When I first put my hands on belly, because I'm conversating, I'm like, oh, where have you been feeling lots of kicks? Where have you been feeling the strongest kicks? Okay, and I do that when I'm first touching her, well, after I measure fundus, but when I'm first moving into Leopold's, okay, I'm asking her for her feedback. I'm engaging her in telling me what she's feeling, okay? And partially because I want to assess how connected she's feeling in the pregnancy, but partially because that takes a quarter of the guessing work out for me.
Yes.
Okay, if she tells me that, like, oh my gosh, like all my kicks are just like right on the top on the side, okay, baby's probably sitting LOP, right? Like all these kicks all over the place, all in the front. Well, I'm probably looking at an OP baby because look at where my feet are pointing. Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I feel some movement, but like kind of feels like they're kicking the back of my ribs or like always punching my kidneys. Right? Probably an OA baby. Okay. Where am I going with this? Okay. So, what is knowing the position? And even if the only last clear position that you have is your last prenatal appointment, okay, again, depending on how long it's been, okay, but even just checking in, like, baby been kind of feeling in the same position, or where's baby feeling like they're at? Like, yeah, I'm feeling kicks kind of the same, but like so much heavier. Okay, well, I probably have a baby fully engaged into the pelvis. But not only is it about under like where a station is, and then that's inferring what dilation could be, right? If you look on this picture, what do you think the white lines inside of the shapes are?
Where the baby is?
Sort of. It's
Sort of.
talking about the widest diameter. Okay, so in the inlet, the widest diameter is across this way, right? If we're thinking about the 13 centimeter ratio, how it's 13, 13, and then 13, right? It's also helping us, and we kind of mentioned it before, it's how is baby going to turn in response to active labor? So how baby is entering the brim or the inlet, where are they entering? Okay, it's going to give us a good clue. Okay, because you can't say always, because sometimes you always get those little stinker pants that rotate around the OP. Okay. It can give us a pretty good idea of how is baby going to navigate the pelvis through the active labor pattern. Does that make sense? Okay. So if baby is entering the OA, what is my next? Yeah, here we go. If babies, most babies will do clockwise, right? Most. We're just going to talk about physiological normals or averages. So most babies, if they're entering into the OA, that baby is probably going to be turning this way, right? So you might have a baby that's crowning in the OP. Okay. So she's deep into active labor and she's like, oh my God, my back, my butthole is just going to get ripped wide open. Okay. And you know that that baby entered into the pelvis in the OA. Okay. That's giving you a pretty good idea that that baby has navigated through the mid pelvis, because now if this baby is following the physiological majority and doing that rotation, and all of a sudden it's just straight back labor and in her butt, and just like my butt's on fire, my butthole's on fire. Okay, that baby is probably through the mid pelvis and we're probably pretty close to pushing, right? Because if they entered in the OA, you're probably at this position now, right? My tailbone feels like it's breaking. It might, but it definitely feels like it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this spiral, most babies will follow this spiral. Again, you get the ones that don't, but those could be compound presentation, like, and we'll talk about those. Okay, so here, if you have a baby entering in the pelvis at the ROT at the 3 o'clock, okay, you probably can expect an LOP, LOT, possibly LOA crowning baby, because they follow that spiral. Does that make sense? Any questions about this? Again, this is the majority. This is not all babies.
Ah,
Buy yourself a lot of chocolate if you get that baby that enters into the OA and takes a long arc around. Lots of chocolate. But we'll talk about that later. Any questions about this? I'm happy to do it again.
I just posted in the chat. I think it's cool how they follow that spiral like in ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's cool. And then if they go the opposite direction, does that mean that they're an opposite person?
Maybe.
Yeah.
My baby, well, I had one that followed the long arc and he's still kind of a pain. Most of the time, there's a compound presentation. There might be a nuchal arm. There's probably a nuchal cord. You know, it's birthable, okay? But right now we're talking about the physiological majority.
Most babies are not going to get hung up in the mid pelvis. Most of them are going to go through those cardinal movements of labor, and they're going to be just fine.
Yep. They're going to follow this normal spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Any questions? Okay, and we're built, even if you want to go back to dilation effacement, okay, because this is all building on top of each other. Anything up to now? Okay. We need a break. Anybody? How are we doing?
Yeah.
You want a break?
Yes.
Okay. 5
Yes,
minutes, please.
please.
I should go.
oh,
Okay, 5 minutes. What do you mean, teeny beanie?
10-inch bubble.
How come your legs are covered in paint?
It's I was peeking.
Well, you don't need to cover your whole legs, dude. Fine. Well,
I'm not. I'm not.
Stop lying. Are you listening to me? Okay, listen to me, not Lindsay.
Samuel.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Yes. Dad. Good boy.
Okay, are we all back?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's back. Okay, of course I remember one of my thoughts that I wanted to say when I was in the bathroom. So one of the reasons why it can be really, really helpful to know this is if you see in the prenatal care that baby has a tendency to hang out in like deep into the ROP position, and it's looking like baby is probably going to start labor in that way, it gives you the opportunity to create the conversation of mentally preparing her, at least, that she's probably going to experience back labor, and kind of come up with a game plan for that. It doesn't always pan out as super, super helpful when they're in active labor and in labor brain. But sometimes it's helpful, especially because you can kind of lay down those mental, emotional kind of sticky notes of like, okay, let's incorporate some of the things that we talked about if you experience these things, and it can be helpful. Okay, that was the thought that I remembered. Okay, so cardinal movements. What have you guys come across in the readings about this? What am I talking about? Okay, so cardinal movements is talking about baby's flexion and descension, and then baby's ability to navigate the pelvis, and get into crowning position, right? So, this is usually what we're seeing, and it's helpful, okay, but I think turning these pictures this direction is a lot more helpful. So that's what I did. Okay. Picture number 1, floaty baby. Okay. It's, but it looks like the cervix is receptive, right? Cervix doesn't look completely posterior. She might be having some, early pattern, practice pattern, prodromal pattern. Okay. And what happens? Okay. So baby flexes, tucks their chin in, rounds their shoulders, and can drop deeper into the pelvis. Okay, dilation and effacement, and then descent. Okay, the head is dropping past the pubic bone. Okay, now the shoulder is right on top of the pubic bone. Okay, and then rotation happens. They're navigating through the mid pelvis. Shoulder is pretty even, or starting to get even with the pubic bone. Okay, so where are my pictures? All right. Okay, so can you guys see this? This would be like slide number 2, right? Flexions is happening, descent, right? Dilation. Can you guys see where the cervix is? So the anterior portion of the cervix is here. Posterior is still here, right? Then baby keeps flexing and turning and descending. Okay, now baby is in the mid pelvis. Where's the cervix? Way up by the ears. Here's the anterior lip. Shoulders right on top of the pubic bone. Here's the posterior cervix lip. Gone. Okay. This is where, the hospitals say, oh, you're complete. Okay. Potentially this could be past transition. This could be in the middle of transition. This could be labored down. Okay. We all following? So we're on slide number 4 on the screen too with this picture. Okay. Then flexation, another flex. Picture 5. 6, restitution rotation. Okay. 7, anterior shoulder. So another rotation, and then posterior shoulder, another rotation and flexing. Okay. Restitution can have its own full pause. right? Gives that time for that posterior shoulder to follow the curve. Where are we at? What do I want? I want this picture. Oh, okay. Okay. So this would be like picture 5, right? And then, but you see, if so, watch the difference of the anterior shoulder, the shoulder right on top of the pubic bone in this picture. Can you guys see okay? Am I at a good angle?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. And then watch the difference in that rotation. Okay, where the anterior shoulder rotated through past. Okay. And then majority of the time, because the chin's not all the way out, right? So there's still probably one more productive push to this. Now, ignore these hands because now the head is fully out, and this is where restitution would happen in home birth. Because we're talking about physiological butter birth, so we don't need our hands in there, right? There's a pause on the perineum. You're going to see the postural drainage. It's almost going to seem like a contraction skipped, okay? But it's giving time for that. See, you can kind of see, here's the anterior shoulder, and that posterior shoulder is still like an inch behind, right? So that restitution, where baby just like literally just rests on the perineum, that posterior shoulder's coming down. And we like seeing that. We really like seeing that. It's so beautiful to us. For most babies, after restitution, the head is totally out, and there's a pause. You're almost kind of like, where's the next contraction? Okay, totally normal. Okay, and then there's usually, for most babies, there's another little quarter turn to spin that posterior shoulder through.
Is that when Lyrica slipped out when you stood up?
Nah, she just slid right out. It was a dang slip and slide. That's a grand mal tip.
Except for Riker.
Except for Riker. Okay. Those are anomalous, and they're anomalous children. We're talking about physiological normals. Okay. How are we feeling about that? Do we want to kind of go back through that?
It's pretty, that atlas of birth is amazing.
Yep.
Images.
So, and everybody saw, I put this PDF in 2 different, you guys have all downloaded this PDF, right? Right? Hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay. So we love that restitution. Okay. 9.5 times out of 10 when there's that pause and restitution. Okay, what's happening? Baby's getting a nice deep squeeze. You're seeing that postural drainage. That posterior shoulders coming down on the perineum. Okay, so it's not going to blast past that perineum. It's going to do that nice little corkscrew. Most of the time, very, very minimal, maybe some skid marks, but very minimal tearing. When you get that nice little cute little, you'll just literally watch them tuck their shoulder and just roll. It's so pretty. Okay. But what can take a little bit of time to like stop your heart from pounding out of your chest is that restitution on the perineum. Okay, because so much social media conditioning of like, you gotta keep going. No. We really like that restitution, that little bit of pause. Okay. And we'll talk about all the things that you're watching for in that pause. Okay, so right now it's just physiological normal. So we like that postural drainage. You'll see the drainage out of the mouth. You'll see the drainage out of the nose. That's all that mucus plug in the whole respiratory system that's starting to drain out. That's setting up physiological normal hypoxia to trigger that first big breath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we like seeing that because then we don't hear those wet lungs or those gurgly cries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You probably see a little bit of color change on restitution, but that's physiological normal hypoxia, right? That's setting up that triggering of the first deep breath to expand all the alveoli. How are we feeling about this? Anything we want to go back over? Okay, and we're gonna find you guys some videos. Found one, but we're gonna find a couple more, so we won't get it to them today. Where you're seeing, we're gonna find videos of seeing the physiological normal. Found some pictures, but I really want some videos of like staring right down the barrel of when it's happening, so we can walk through this too. But I want to make sure that we're feeling solid on these steps for now. Come on, guys. I'm not that good of a teacher. We need to go back over. I'm joking. Okay. Here's from the internal angle. Okay. So, internal
This is a
rotation.
woman on her back.
Yeah, this is this picture. How usually in the textbook, and this was literally that way. All I did was turn it, cropped it, expanded it, and turned it on its side. But literally just changing the visual angle and look at how much difference it is. Isn't that insane? Okay, so this is if she were in lithotomy position, what's going on? Okay, probably never going to see it this way. I mean, obviously, because there's no soft tissue, but still can be helpful to create that imagery in your brainstem. Okay, so hitting the ischial spines, rotation, more flexation. So babies literally they're flexing in to drop in. Okay, then they're wiggling down, then their body catches up, then they're turning, then they're wiggling down, and their body catches up, and they're turning again. Okay. And this is why we like all the movement. Oh yeah, go ahead, go to the bathroom, get out of the pool, in and out of bed, in and out of bed, taking a walk, right? Love it.
And if you're somebody who either, through your own practice style or whatever, is going to do sterile vaginal exams, the suture position
Yep.
helps you to know where this baby is at and where they're coming into.
Yep.
So if you're feeling those posterior sutures in the front of your fingers, you know you have an OP baby. So if you have a mom with a little bit more real estate and everything seems to be progressing normally, but then you feel and you're like, oh wait, baby is actually kind of coming in the posterior.
You guys, my sutures.
There's a lot that you might be able to do for her if it's early enough in the labor.
All I had was an orange marker. Can you even see those?
Yeah, I could see them.
Well, my big baby with the sutures on its head got walked off with from my little man baby. But yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you are doing and majority of the time, okay, so was it last year? This last January, I had a I did have a primate that begged me to check her, but I had a non-primate fourth time mom, and she's like, I don't think I remember how to push. And I'm like, I think you might. But kept asking me to check her, and after 3 contractions and a little bit of conversations, like I checked her. Okay, I literally got in like that far, right, guys? Or that far. And all I felt was this suture. I was like, baby's right there. Yep. Baby's right there. Go ahead. If you feel ready, go ahead. right? Okay. Any questions? Anything that you want to see again? Anything from readings that you're like, okay, I read this, but it doesn't quite match what I think I'm seeing? Even if we need to go back to another section and something about dilation isn't, we want it all to flow together up to this stage.
Can I ask a question? So what is, I've never, I've only delivered my babies.
Yep.
And never did a did an exam. What does it feel like? The sutures, if you could describe it.
An
Yeah.
upside down mushroom.
Yeah. What do the sutures feel like? So you'll feel it, and the longer she's been in labor, right? She baby might have a capit, a little bit of fluid, but they the bones, I don't know why I couldn't think of that, right? They'll overlap. Okay. But you'll always be able to feel this front fontanelle. Okay. And the skin can get squishy together and kind of look like sometimes when they're crowning, it literally looks like a little Shar-Pei, like wrinkly. Okay. But you'll always be able to feel this front fontanelle no matter how much, well, I shouldn't say that. Never say never, Jane. The universe will correct you. Almost always, you should be able to feel this front fontanelle. And it does feel like bone covered tissue, even though their head is soft. Okay. If you kind of tense up your thumb, it can feel muscly hard, but still you can still kind of feel your bone underneath.
So it's not like how you just did that with your finger and tighten up, and the let me turn on my camera. Like when you tighten up your hand and you have this little crease right here, that feeling in there, like the difference between this side not tight to your thumb being tight, like
It
that
can.
little ridge.
It can. There's definitely a texture difference when you feel the bones versus feeling the fontanelle, and it feels squishy. Okay, and it'll feel a little receded. Okay, you'll feel an edge, especially if these two bones are overlapping a lot. Okay, you'll feel the ridge. Okay, you might feel a ridge here. If these front bones are overlapping a bit, you can feel a ridge here. I wish I had a black Sharpie. That's not helpful. But yeah, you might feel the plates overlapping. Okay. I mean, depending on how high baby still is, like if they're halfway through the vagina, there's probably been enough compression where you'll feel a ridge, you'll feel what's the word I'm looking for? Most of the time, by the time like that one that I told you I was like this far in, I would rather have felt this back versus the fontanelle, right? Because that means that baby's not fully flexed. Their baby was halfway through the vagina and they weren't as flexed as they were. But also if you're thinking about extension, so baby was in a mid extension when I checked her and I felt the fontanelle. If baby was fully flexed, I would feel the back of the head. To help, I should turn baby this way, right? So that told me that baby was in part of an extension if I was reaching in and feeling this front fontanelle versus fully flexed and feeling the back of the head with my fingers.
And the way that I was taught was to think of like, to think of your lips like this,
Mm,
and then you're feeling, I don't know where the hell my camera is. Hold on, I'll do it this way. That's not any more helpful.
no.
Hold on.
There you go.
I'm like, that's not
That's
any more
better.
helpful.
You're pointing
So,
in the wrong direction.
yes, I don't know where my damn
Turn a little,
camera
turn a
is.
little.
Switch your hands.
Hold on.
Make your cervix with the other hand. There you go.
This hand? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's your cervix. Okay. In the center of my fingers. If your lips are right there and you're feeling inside your fingers, you're going to feel squishy from the inside of your mouth, right? Like if you make a kiss, you're going to feel squishy, but you're also going to feel all the bone of your teeth in your jaw. So I was always taught to feel for the mouth or to feel for the upside down mushroom. Because an upside down mushroom, you're going to feel all the ridges around it, but then it's going to feel kind of soft and squishy in between. And an anterior fontanelle is only going to accept like a finger, maybe
Yeah.
two of mine small. Whereas a posterior fontanelle, you could fit like 3 fingers in that bad boy. And
Yep. Yep.
that's
So
how you know where you're at, because the bones are going to be squishy and overlapping.
Yep. So the one that I was using an example, if I had to have gone up farther and I felt the back of the head, so if I would have had to have like gone all the way in, right, to where the antroides is like all the way down to the base of my fingers, and I was feeling the hard bony part of the back of the baby's head. Okay. And if she told me she wanted to push, I'd be like, okay, cool, push, go ahead. Okay. But in my mind, I would have been calculating, okay, this is probably going to be, especially as a multip, this is probably going to be like 5 to 7 pushes, maybe 8 pushes, right? And then we should be at restitution, right? But because I only got in like a joint and a half, and I was feeling the anterior fontanelle, I knew that posterior shoulder was probably catching up or had already caught up, and this was going to be 3 pushes or less, which it was like 2.
Wow.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
This
And
is
we will
so cool.
and we will have hands-on. I mean, we probably won't have a bunch of pregnant vaginas in latent stage labors where you can like feel that, but we will have something similar of a man-made variety to try and simulate as best as we can. Right. Anything else? All the questions. Oh, I don't mean to show you my baby's butthole. On all the questions. Okay. So, what are things that we're looking for in assessing labor progress? Okay. Now, clinical, what's their bread and butter, right? SVEs all day long, every hour, right? That's what they're determining progress, blah, blah, blah. Jane has lots of opinions about that, but we're talking about physiological labor. Okay. Majority of ours is going to be observational, right? Because at some point, she's not going to be able to give the verbal feedback of like, oh yeah, it feels like baby's lower. Now, she might spontaneously, oh my God, this is so much pressure. Oh my God, all the weight in my butt. Okay. But as far as like question and answering, it's going to progressively go out the window, which is in and of itself is a helpful assessment tool, right? Can she carry on a conversation? Again, depending on the multip or grand multip, that might not be a helpful assessment tool. Definitely for first-time home birthers, first-time vaginal pushers, if it's a VBAC situation, okay, the faster that assessment tool goes out the window, that's a very helpful assessment tool. Okay, So what else can we use? The purple line.
Yeah, it's my
Right?
favorite.
Right? Have we read about the purple line yet? Can't remember. Maybe not. Okay.
Yeah, it's been in our reading, I think.
I think it has been.
Mhm.
Okay. This says 76% of women in labor. I would say for if they have any flavor of melanation, I would say like 86, 87%
Mhm.
of the time it's going to show up. Now, it might not progress. It might not show up at 2 or 5. Okay, but if they have
But by 10,
if they have any flavor of melanation, any shade of brown, if they have any spice on any of their parents, even if their dad was just like quarter Hispanic, okay, it's all of a sudden it's going to show up at 8, 9, 10. Okay, I would say 76% of what they're saying, 70%, 76% is white people. Okay. And the more melanated their flavor is, the sooner it's going to show up. And it's awesome. It's super helpful. Okay. Another one, popping of the tailbone. Right? That baby, now, it can also be a sign that baby is like, if baby's cruising through and like hitting all the curvations and like following the water slide, this might not ever happen. Okay. If she has wider hip set or a little bit of real estate, you might not see it. Okay. If she's a hippie mama, like got some hips on her, that's her bone structure and not just like cushy saddlebags, you might not see it. Okay. But if she kind of has like,
have you ever seen it as pronounced as this gal in the picture, this trim gal in the picture?
no,
I've never seen it that pronounced.
no, I've seen it like this on the bottom black and white one.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
We can almost cup it.
Yeah. And most of the time they love the counter pressure on it. Okay. That's that baby is navigating through the mid pelvis. Now, all of a sudden it doesn't feel good and you don't see that, she's about ready to push. That baby is past. Okay. Because what's coming through that area? The head and the shoulders. Okay. So if she, especially if, baby's kind of, oh my God, how am I trying to do this? I can't do it with the baby. There we go.
Tape her arms down.
I know I got to tape the arms down, but I feel like that would be like visually disturbing or something. Maybe not with surgical tape. Anyway, so if my fist is baby's head and, what was my thought? Anyway, so if she's doing runners like this, okay, if she's doing lots of movement, you might not see this. Okay, if this is moving around, you might not ever see it. Okay, but if she's kind of like, if part of her coping ritual is kind of that freeze through the contraction, okay, you might see it, but it's probably what's going on is the shoulders are pushing the the AP diameter. Sorry, not OP diameter, right? Is this even helpful? Because I feel like I'm not being helpful. Okay, there we go. So the shoulders are in the AP diameter. The head is in like +2, +3-ish, right? Those shoulders are coming through the mid pelvis. Now, once if it disappears, or if that counter pressure all of a sudden doesn't feel good, she's about ready to crown. Those shoulders have slipped past that AP diameter and they're gathering, that head is flexing onto the perineum and she's going to turn around and be crowning. That makes sense? Okay.
Yep.
OP babies can do this in the mid pelvis and it'll stay like this for hours, potentially.
It'll be rough.
Yeah, it's rough. Ooh, it's rough, huh, baby? Can you find Arica? Can you find my big teaching baby? It's not in there. He walked off with it. Okay. Oh yeah, I am. Okay. This making sense? Stop. Any questions about this? All right.
This teaching maybe? After the
Yes,
stuff
thank you. Okay. Emotional markers. Okay, we talked about progressive loss of modesty for some women. Kind of touched. I don't know if you're on Twin when I had said, you know, you guys might not support in communities that have very strict modest teachings where like that's not going to be a progression that you're going to be able to measure. Okay, but most women all of a sudden they're either chucking them off or they forget to put things back on.
Right.
Okay. They can get really short. Like, don't touch me. Hey, dude, sir. Hey, it's another one I'm thinking of. I can't remember. Well, we had kind of seen some of the examples in the first ones, right? Like
Like the getting pissy and getting
all of a
pushy.
sudden, yeah, all of a sudden they're irritable, all of a sudden they're crabby or snappy. They can get cussy. This is where I tell women, like, I promise you're not going to hurt your feelings, so just let it fly. It actually helps me know where you're at. Okay. Sometimes they can get really apologetic. Okay. Especially if they've been utilizing hip squeezes as part of their coping ritual. Okay, so it can go the other way. Okay. In physiological labor, you're probably not going to see a ton. Well, you're not going to see a ton of fetal heart tone responses to the progression. You shouldn't, right? If we're talking about physiological normal labor, the quintessential butter bursts, you know, I don't want to say fantasy because it does happen, but if you ever read Michelle O'Donnell, it's like it's the burst where the midwife can just sit in the corner and just supervise from afar, right? Those are the types of bursts that we're talking about right now. You'll probably see, if you do choose to monitor frequently, okay, you might see times, especially when it's shifting, like if it's shifting from early first stage to active first stage, when you're seeing the bigger shifts, you might see a shift in the baseline, but then it's probably going to go back, right? If you think about it like a sport, you know, when you're shifting the intensity of the sport, but then you get used to that, like your heart rate should shift back down, right? The little recovery period, and then your baseline might wiggle a little bit, but you're not going to see the big, huge jumps. Okay. You're probably not going to see the huge range reactions like you might have seen prenatally, because babies kicking and move, like they're still an active participant, right? They're flexing and extending and turning and flexing, but they're not exerting those big, huge kicks and movements, right? So you're probably not going to see those big, wide ranges. Well, you shouldn't. Okay, right? You shouldn't. In physiological labor, we shouldn't be.
You don't want to. Yeah.
Shouldn't be seeing those things. We won't see even the dips down into 60s, 70s, 80s in response to contraction recovery. Okay. That baby, as far as fetal heart tone checks with the Doppler, not a lot of change. Okay. That is a well coping baby to physiological labor. And if you do see some changes, okay, and in a short, if you choose to utilize the fetal heart tone as a monitoring tool, and you check it again, the adjustment period is pretty quick recovering, pretty quick adjusting, right? Okay, same with mother's vitals. Okay, because both of their hormone cycles, adrenaline, cortisol, what's the other one? I talk about it here in a second. right there. Okay, this baby's hormone cycle and mom's hormone cycle is responding appropriately to the progression of the stages of labor. The endorphins are showing up. Adrenaline is showing up when appropriate, and then regulating back down. Okay, both moms and babies. So you're not going to see huge variabilities in blood pressure, heart tones, heart rates, breathing. If you're checking O2 sats, if you're utilizing intake of fluid and eating as part of your assessment tools, because all these hormones are cycling and progressing as appropriate to the progression of labor stages. Does that make sense? A little bit of adrenaline when we're hitting transition, but then the endorphins pick up. Okay. Her ability to cope might change for a couple 3 to 5 contractions, but then she's naturally intuitively figuring out what her new coping ritual is, and then she chills back out. Okay. Any questions or thoughts so far? Okay, what comes to mind for this? Reasons for normal variations in labor pattern. Okay, that still falls within the realm of physiological labor. Okay. Maybe she hasn't had a snack. Maybe
Sleep.
Well, yeah, sleep for sure. Eating, okay. Maybe husbands, their labor started unexpectedly. Okay. Oh yeah, they'll be totally. But she's like, oh yeah, I've been contracting since 4:00 this morning, but I didn't think it would turn into anything. So he went to work anyway. Now she's trying to call him home at lunch, but then he gets home and then everything regulates fine. Right.
Baby's position. Oh.
Yep. Right.
Depending on where that baby is at.
Mm-hmm. And then once baby tucks in a little bit, if they're a little bit prolonged in a flexation through the mid pelvis, but then once they get through that and then they can tuck in, okay, that contraction pattern might be stuck in transition for a little bit.
And in a primip, a normal variation in that labor pattern could be due to maternal exhaustion.
Yep.
And that's still, I think anyway, a form of physiological labor. We expect that in the primip.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, even if we don't love it, even if we've asked her to sleep and get something to eat and whatever, if you're seeing a variation in that labor pattern, you can look to her, how much rest has she actually taken in the early part of her labor.
Anybody else thoughts or questions? Because my whole point with this is I don't want you to get locked in your anticipating it to have to if it falls out of the perceived norm, that it still isn't part of physiological labor. Okay, So physiological labor does not mean that you don't have to suggest any course corrections or any recommendations at all, right? Suggesting food, suggesting rest, suggesting, you know, timing, so timing on the contraction.
Positional changes and
Yep.
any of those things. If the labor pattern goes back to its baseline, you know that you're still within that window of physiological labor.
Could it be something like she got into the tub too early?
It could be,
It's-
but then there's also, because I I'm very cautious with using the too early. Okay. I get where you're going with this. Okay, but if you think about the birth pool as a coping tool of what it was as it was designed to be, okay, there can be a lot of women, there's a physiological normal lull or reduction, spacing out of contractions when they get into the pool. Okay, because what's happened? Loss of gravity, so the muscles are being supported. Okay, moisture, relaxation, and heat. Okay, those muscles are getting a break. Okay, so I include a lot of a conversation about, okay, yes, you can get into the pool, and if things space out, take that rest. Okay, utilize it as a coping tool. Okay,
because if it's active later,
it'll pick right back up.
it's gonna pick back up.
Yep.
You're not gonna get that rest for long, so take it while you can get it.
Yep. And if it doesn't, that doesn't mean that it's not active labor. It just means that it's earlier in active labor, and now maybe she can get a nap, and that's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And you too.
Yeah, and you too. Okay. But that's a great point, because that's also why when I have moms that say that they want the pool, I do a lot of conversation about the emotional component of utilizing the pool as a tool. Right. And I also talk, especially to prime hips, about it's very, very difficult. I don't have a lot of prime hips that actually push their baby out in the pool, because that sensation and pushing is a learned skill. And when I have prime hips that are insistent on staying in the pool, there can be a lot of unproductive pushing. And majority of the time, I end up suggesting that they come out because they need that sensation of gravity. Okay. But there is a perception of like, well, you want to make sure that you don't get in too soon. Okay. Because there is that normal lull, and either capitalize on that and get the break, both of you. Okay. But be watchful of where the emotional line is, because if that feels more defeating for her, okay, but then also look back and see when was the last time she got a nap. Like, do you need to kind of encourage utilizing it as a tool, or is it more emotionally motivating for her to keep with that pressure? Like she's invested, she's motivated to keep the ball like hot and heavy and rolling. Does that seem
And
helpful?
yeah. And
But
a
that's
lot of times when I hear midwives talk about, don't go get in too early, they've also got, I mean, dare I say it, a bit of a facility mindset in that they want to see that labor progress, bam, bam, bam. And it's nice cookie cutter stages of labor that they could go, oh, that's the beginning of this stage. Oh, that's the beginning of that stage. And they like everything to kind of flow quickly and always with an eye of forward progression.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if you are, let's say you want to capitalize on some good active labor patterns, but that mom's exhausted, then your second stage, your pushing stage is very likely going to be quite rough.
Yep.
Because she's not slept or rested when her body maybe could have given her an opportunity to do so.
Yep. The only time that I can think of off the top of my head when there wasn't a leg or there wasn't like a little bit of spacing out was a multip that had already been productive pushing for a little while before getting in the pool. Okay, so I don't know if that was helpful, but and I was actually going to get into that. Weird, same thought. That perception of getting into the pool too early. There are lots. I know quite a few midwives that, oh, I have to check and make sure you're at least an 8 before you get into the pool.
Yes.
Well, why? What if I need a break? What if I have so much back labor, but I'm only a 6, so now I don't get to get in the pool and utilize that as a coping tool, as to get some relaxation and maybe rest? Like, go ahead, take a nap in the pool. Cool, awesome. I'm gonna go sit in your lazy boy and take a nap too, and just listen for when it wakes you up. Okay, but excellent point. Anything else come to mind?
Transition, like the humming or the tone drops.
Sure, like the demeanor change.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yep.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Please, please, please. The Girl Scout promised me that you'll come out of this coursework without thinking that just because you hit transition that it can't go back to late active labor. You can go back and forth and back and forth, and you can. I know that was transition. It was all the things, and I was timing them, and it was exactly transition. And then all of a sudden, it goes back and forth and back and forth, and there was one time, and I went back. I was still kind of a baby midwife, and I was charting, and I went back, and I was like, "That's the 3rd time that I put transition. Am I wrong? Am I not, do I not know what I'm looking at?" I'm like, nope, it can happen. Yep. It can happen. And I would even argue, don't think that can't happen even in the pushing stage. I mean, it's not, that potentially could be where you're starting to step out of physiological pattern. Okay. But in transition, still that back and forth, that potentiality, that can still absolutely be a physiological pattern.
So these mamas aren't doing it bam, 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 no pauses, no backtracking, is very normal.
It is very normal. Unfortunately, societal wise, we're just conditioned because whatever, pop culture, movies, hospitals, all the arguments, right? Like once it starts, it never stops. No, we're not a machine. We're not an assembly line.
It makes me think of that potential twin mom that, you consulted with at a, short notice, but very lengthy. And she chose to go to the hospital because she had more control there. It just kind of makes me laugh thinking about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
I had a Dr. Pepper with 0 sugar, and I didn't mean to choose that. I know.
Gross. Okay. Anything else come into mind for anybody?
The resting period.
Okay. The rest and be thankful stage.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. What about that one? Can you still switch back? Yep, sure can.
It'll show up. Yeah, and I'm thinking as you're saying that, like that's probably a normal for that person if they go back and forth from transition to active labor, back to transition. Like, I'm wondering if that's maybe normal for them. Like that's how their body needed to go through their labor.
It could be because something could have happened here. Okay. If they got past transition and they're very clearly in the rest and be thankful stage, but then unknowing, like, let's say hypothetically, the mother-in-law didn't know that this was going on in the house, and then she dropped something, she rang the doorbell and dropped something off, and then the dad had to go to the door and be like, oh, she's actually in labor, and oh, sorry, I gotta go. And mother-in-law leaves, and there's no perceived like issue or event, but that doorbell was enough to kick up a little adrenaline, and maybe that reverts her back to transitional a little bit. Okay. And then all of a sudden she's kind of more in a transitional pattern again, and then she hits rest and be thankful again.
Or she fights the pressure coming out of the rest and be thankful.
Yeah. Or maybe she panics about rest and be thankful. How come? Oh, did I quit?
Everything's stopping. Yeah, everything quit. Everything's stopping.
Yep. Okay.
And
Does
labor
that
just
mean,
stopped.
yep. Does that mean that physiological labor has stopped or been hijacked or isn't possible? Nope. We gotta circle back. We gotta get some adrenaline, get a little bit more prolactin. Just like, okay, this is fine. No, nope, this is okay. Yep, that can happen. Let's check on baby real quick. Oh yeah, baby sounds great. Do you want a snack? Do you want to get out of the pool? Do you want to get into the pool? Yep. Nice. Okay. Do we need Okay, so that's it for lecture of unit topics. Okay. Any final, or not final, but questions, thoughts, reviews about the lecture topics? Anybody need to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry. Excuse me. I can't tell when people come back, so you guys are gonna have to let me know. Everybody back?
Yep.
Yeah.
I am.
Yes. For sure. For sure, for sure, for sure.
Yep.
Okay. So let's do 3 review. We'll do the case study reviews for the first 3. So across the board, excellent submissions. Okay. Really great formats that you guys came up for yourselves. I was able to get a very clear picture, impression, or understanding of the labor without having watched it. I mean, I did watch it, but I'm saying, like, if I hadn't watched it, I knew from you guys's whatever, if you develop charts from the timestamps, or I don't want to say too much about format, because the formats that you guys came up for yourselves were great. Okay, so let's talk about Beth.
Good old Beth.
Yeah, what'd you guys think about that? A couple of you had some good reflections. Is that the one somebody post? I think one of you put like a reflection note of, like, or maybe that was a different. Anyway, point is, tell me about this birth, guys. What did you think about it? Any questions or clarifications, or like, oh, I noticed this. Somebody start us off.
Was this the one with the coconut water?
No.
Okay. I have to open up my
Nope.
drive here.
I think coconut water was Tara.
Oh yeah, I did like a little personal observation. This is the one where the midwife at the end, they called time, and
Yeah.
the lady said 10:27, and she goes, "Oh, let's call this 10:25." And I was like, "What? Like, why would you say the baby was born at 10:27? You're saying the baby's born at, what, are you putting it back like 2 minutes early?" I had a little like flip out while I was watching it, because I thought, how wrong is that?
Yeah. Yep. I liked your note about that. Why would you do that? Okay.
That's not it.
I thought this one was a really nice, like, I don't know, a nice birth experience. Everything kind of just flowed, and there wasn't too many interruptions for her.
I liked the different movements she was using throughout her labor. You could tell she was doing different things. The birth ball, she was rocking. She was using gravity. She was doing like a side lying thing. She was getting counter pressure and sitting on a stool. She was breathing. Like there was a lot of different things she was doing throughout throughout the labor.
Yep. Yep. Anything, any questions or anything like particularly stand? This one was pretty. I wasn't trying to give you guys a change up right out of the gate.
I was wondering why she had offered to break her membranes early. Like, is that normal, or is that?
It's probably a personal practice style, something that midwife is willing to do. And an offer on the table that she's willing to utilize as a labor enhancement tool. But clinically there was no clear reason why she would break the waters at that stage, but that was something that midwife is comfortable offering at that stage, as maybe that midwife isn't very well versed in tinctures, so she doesn't have tinctures or utilize tinctures to progress or enhance a contraction pattern, and that's the tool that she readily uses instead. But yeah, I kind of have the same feeling about that. I'm like, ugh. Okay. Anything else about Beth?
So does breaking her water progress it
Sometimes.
Sometimes it can.
sometimes?
Yep, it can. There's trade-offs to it, you know. It might not work. Okay, but the same thing can be used about utilizing tinctures. It might work, it might not work.
Is that how you wipe off a baby?
That was pretty aggressive.
Not how I
That
do
was,
it.
that was pretty excessive.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's very rare for me personally. I can think of 2 times off the top of my head where I excessively wiped off baby like that, and one of them was super messy, and all you could see was poopy vernix on their face, and I didn't want them to aspirate that, and I don't want to hand baby up looking like that. It's kind of, you know. And the other one was there was a partial abruption, so there was lots of blood on baby's face, but that is, for me, that's definitely not my standard of the first thing to do when baby comes out is excessively wipe. Again, if that midwife was trained in facility, that tends to be kind of their protocol, their SOP.
Yeah, that's their
protocol,
go-to. Mhm.
you know, but as far as like necessary, no. No. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of when I've like aggressively stimmed a baby.
Well, so stimming can be different than wiping like that. She could have
Right,
been
yeah,
doing it in conjunction with stimming and wiping. That is, and maybe she was, but I didn't pick up on a reason to incorporate stimming. Like, baby
well,
looked,
see, that's what I was thinking. Like, baby looked great. Baby had
baby
great
looked
tone,
great.
great color.
Yeah.
Like, what are you wiping them off like you're running a marathon for? You know?
I didn't get it there. I'm like, because leave the baby alone. Just doing good. Yeah. So
But
that,
I might try to aggressively stim a baby or dry off a baby a little more forcefully if they're like got an after a 4.
yeah. 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 So that wiping aggressive, yeah. And that would, for me, that would be a style of wiping incorporating stimming where I don't yet feel like I need to be alarming in my intentions, where baby could like come around, you know.
I felt like this gal had some L&D experience because that's
Yeah.
what it reminded me of.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of too. Typical what you see in the hospital right away, regardless of what baby is doing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Anything else about Miss Beth? Great. On to Miss Ellen. Great. Couple things came up with this one, right?
She was the coconut water one, right?
Mm,
Yeah, I think Ellen
yeah.
was.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, I got coconut water written in the notes here.
Yep. She's a hospital birth.
I think there was one point when she was on the ball And I thought that was a really good like visual example of like trying to open your pelvis up, the way
Mhm.
she had her knees and her feet. Like, because sometimes I find like it's hard to describe. Like they think just squatting in a big open wide squat like is the best, but it's like the way she had her feet and her knees I really liked, I think.
Mhm. What do we think about that epidural? And when she said she wanted to push.
I think that one's Tara.
Yeah.
That one's Tara.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Threw me off.
I was like, what?
Thank
No,
you.
no, this one was a
Not
gentle
the
birth.
one
That
where
one
her
was
kids
horrible.
kept coming in, right?
Oh yeah,
Weren't
her
Ellen's
kids
yeah,
were
kids?
sorry,
They
my
kept
bad.
coming in.
her
Yep.
kids were splashing around the pool with her while she was laboring.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's Alan.
I was in my wrong notes. Thanks, guys. Okay, my bad, Tara. Ellen. We're in Ellen. What the crowds? Ellen. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, I thought this was a good example of that tone change.
I like how she was dancing.
Yeah. I feel like she was really educated and well prepared and had all the healthy, nutritious foods.
Mhm.
And you had lots of coping things. She like had her pillow and dancing, music, stretching in various positions, and then
Yep.
use the birthing pool and using her breathing techniques like breathing up
Yep.
and focus on breathing out.
This was a good example of a seasoned home birther.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. She didn't let anybody touch her, really.
Yeah. What recommendations or what suggestions or ideas are you going to give a 5th-time home birther? If this was the first time that you were supporting her and she's like, oh yeah, I've had 5 home births. I was like, cool. Anything you want me to know about your plan? No, we're good. Okay, cool. We're good.
All right.
We're good. Okay. All right. Let's go on to Tara. Wait, what? Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if you thought, just based on the video, if this baby though would have a lower APGAR score than the baby in the first video, just by like coloring and stuff.
Not
When baby
necessarily, because Ellen's baby was a good example potential of that normal physiological hypoxia. Little bit of color change on the head, hands, and feet. Tone still looked and reactivity still looked good. So in the moment, depending on how quickly baby perfused, might not affect APGAR score. Okay, you just got a better picture of a variation of color change that can be associated with a good normal hypoxia, physiological hypoxia setup.
Yeah, because he was pretty blue.
Yep. Depending on how quickly perfused, probably still like an 8. What do you think?
I think I had down a 7, 6 at 1, and a 9 at 5.
Okay.
I'm trying to find, looking at my notes. It's not just necessarily color. Like he hung out for a minute, so
Yeah.
you can kind of assume that they might have a little bit more discoloration in their face, especially if they were on the perineum for any amount of time.
Yep.
And that's not
Also,
necessarily a ding for color.
yep. Also, that can be very normal for a short cord. Okay.
Yep.
because they get a couple extra hard tugs as that physiological hypoxia is setting up right before birth. Now, I couldn't definitively tell if it didn't look, I mean, it definitely didn't look like the shortest cord I've ever seen. Like, I've seen some short cords, okay? But depending on how, like if it was over the shoulder or, and not necessarily for this one, okay? But even if they have a decently long cord, if it's looped around their neck or a shoulder or like around their body a little bit, that can be enough to give a couple extra good tugs, and that might make that color a little bit deeper.
Oh, she's got a fundal placenta. So I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but baby had good tone.
Yep.
And so those are the things that I look for. Like, how does baby actually look?
Yep. Yep. Anything else about Miss Ellen? Okay, now we're on to Miss Tara. What do you think about her epidural?
I was getting mad. I
Right?
was getting
It
so
was at an
mad.
18.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we only go up by 6s.
Oh,
What?
sure.
What? Okay.
Yeah. Like, wait, what?
Oh. Like, well, that's not ACOG.
Don't push. Oh shit, she needs oxygen.
Yeah, right.
No kidding. Durr. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. Okay. But again, all this everything that you guys were reflecting, like the formats that you guys came up for yourself, I'm very, very, very happy and impressed with. I think you guys did a great job. I can definitely see your styles, the one that came up with a more formal charting style versus a reflective note-taking charting. Like, I thought everything was great.
And I think it's interesting if you have a transfer to a facility birth and they tell you that they increase their pit by 6.
AMA.
Get the frick out of there.
Holy
And then,
cruds.
when they they're quadrupling it essentially.
Yeah.
And then no wonder why she's begging for an epidural.
Yeah, no wonder why
Because
she can't
they slammed her.
sit still. And that if putting ourselves in that position, if it had been a transfer, okay, and we were the midwife or the doula and still there, for myself, that first time that she was talking about that zinging, I would have been all over that like white on rice. I'm like, you guys, something's got to check. Like, this ain't right. Like, she's like, because that is potential nerve damage.
Yep.
And that potentially can be permanent. And last I checked, ACOG was 2 every 30 minutes, an increase of 2 by 30 minutes. So 6 by 6, like, bleh.
Insane.
Ugh. Yeah. But freaking more power to her for sitting through multiple attempts. I'd be like, should we just go home? Do you want to just, no, I'm joking. I mean, I would have, but dang.
And when you think about, like, in the event of a transfer, it's helpful to know, at least for me, like, what is the policy of that hospital?
Yeah.
Like, what can you instruct? Do they always want full IV access with a bag of LR for everybody?
Yeah.
Like, what can you negotiate?
And we'll get into this more, but then understanding, like, that's facility policy, so it literally doesn't matter which doctor you get, or is that physician preference?
Yep.
Is that physician that's what they like to do? Oh, that's just what we do by the 6th. Is it because that's the physician or the obstetrician's personal preference?
Mm-hmm.
Right
Or
now,
that particular charge nurse.
yeah. Ooh.
I've seen the nurses do it, and the doctors come in and be like, "What the frick is this? Why is this at a 28?" You know.
Yep. Yep.
And isn't Tara the one that got the bolus of lidocaine after her epidural?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, what the freaking crap was that?
Yep. I think I was shaking my head the entire time I was watching this one. I mean, and then the moment she is fully dilated and she feels the urge to push, they tell her like she wants to bear down and push. They tell her to wait for the doctor, and the doctor gets stuck in traffic and gets there like, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes later, and then she's able to finally push. You know, she has to get oxygen. I think also that you can tell that her husband kind of didn't really know how to help her or
Yeah, they
tried
could
to
have
put-
they could have had a childbirth ed class.
yeah, you could tell they didn't know how to prepare for this, even though they have another they already had a previous pregnancy, and the toddler was at home. You could tell they weren't very well prepared. And she kind of just she wanted to, you could tell there were certain moments where she wanted to trust her body, but then was told by the nurse or the medical providers, like, we need to do this, or this is what we're going to do. And she would just be like, okay, and kind of hand it over to them. So I thought that those things were interesting. The doctor to the audacity to come in the room and say, "Oh, were you waiting for me?" Like, I
Here
was like,
I
"Are
am.
you kidding me? How is that okay?" Yeah.
I love it when they walk in and they're like, "I'm here to save the day," and you're just like, "Barf."
Yep. So for this one, you know, in comparison to Ellen, okay, baby's color change definitely dings on Apgar, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
we know epidural on board, mom's in distress, Toko
She's
is
hypoxic.
yeah. Okay, so those are but this is the comparative, like not all color change is necessarily a ding or a 0. Maybe it's a 1 instead of a 2. But in this situation with all the components together, baby's color change is a hard ding.
Mhm.
Yeah. And their tone, weren't they kind of
Yeah.
floppy?
Yeah.
Tara's baby was floppy, right? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like and here's where I would argue the whole picture of the APGAR being in traditional midwifery is vastly, vastly different than clinical styles, like only what's going on in that 1 minute, right? Like we know he just rolled the lightning of +6 every 30 minutes, right?
Right.
And now, and mom's hypoxic. Of course, baby's going to be hypoxic.
Well,
Right?
multiple attempts at the epidural,
Oh yeah,
right? So
yeah,
so often that's
yep.
multiple
So
attempts at
her
local
adrenaline,
analgesia.
if her adrenaline is all over the damn place, guess what he's getting saturated in,
Yep.
right? And the Toko reflected that too, right? For those of you that were watching that or made notes about that too, like, and I'm not saying that those that didn't, it's bad. not at all. Okay, I'm just saying, like, if we go back and after this unit or after next unit and clear the slate and watch them again, your notes are going to be different because now you're watching for different things, right? You're noticing different things, but that's the point, right? Okay, so the whole picture, the times when even the difference in visiting with traditional midwives or direct entry midwives and how some CPMs do their APGAR scores. Okay. But there again, it's a scale and it's under a lot of subjectivity sometimes.
There's a lot of room for practice style.
Yeah. A lot of room for practice style. Like the one where she was like pretty aggressively stimming and wiping, she might have dinged that baby on the APGAR, where me and Jade were like,
Meh.
why? What the heck?
Yeah.
What's going
Maybe
on?
didn't look too bad.
Yeah.
Would the extra adrenaline or the pitocin be one of the reasons why baby was like so jittery and trembling, or is that just like a nervous system response?
That's probably low blood sugar
Yeah.
based on the epidural and the pip.
Yeah,
And they
because
probably weren't allowing her to eat.
she's not eating because they're anticipating her going to the OR. The epidural's already in place. Yep. Yeah, if we would see the labs on that baby, yeah, that'd probably pretty borderline crashy baby.
Yeah.
And especially because it's a good sized baby. What was that one? Like 8 something?
8 something, I think. 8
Yeah.
and change.
Yeah.
And not
So-
super macro. I mean, I
No.
wouldn't have thought it was a GD baby,
No,
but
but
definitely
those-
a hungry baby. Definitely a baby that needed,
yep.
not to be shut out of the gate like that.
Yeah. Yep. And arguably, a baby that could have ridden physiological labor very well with no hiccups because the baby did have a good amount of brown fat based on weight, and
Right.
doesn't look macro or GDM or anything like that. Like
Mhm.
if that had been undisturbed physiological birth, probably hypothetically walk through that without a hiccup.
Yeah, could have looked very different.
Yep. No, because he had the energy stores, he had the brown fat to respond to normal progression of labor. But that +6, man, that +6 Pitocin is like,
Yeah, my butthole puckered.
yeah, mine too.
I was like, whoa. She set up by the 6s? I was like, dang. She's going to be riding the lightning quick.
Yep. Anything else? Any other thoughts, reflections, questions on this one? Okay. All right. So what's next? So we are going to repeat next week, part 2 and the other 2 case studies. All right. Same funky time, same funky place.
Ooh.
Okay. I just like this picture.
What is that?
That's your
Unpregnant
guts.
in a uterus. Yeah.
Where do you come up with this stuff?
I
She's
find
a
them.
maestro, freaking magician.
Yep. Okay. Anything else for tonight?
Your visuals are amazing. I appreciate everybody's participation in the readings conversation and the case study review. It is so good to hear your voices and the interaction. Just a thought.
It's a nice thought. I concur. Okay. Anybody else? And I am gonna try and same thing for next week. I'm gonna try to only to contain it to just a half hour over our time slot. And then the following week will be our full spectrum holistic doula certification that is built into the coursework. So preemptive congratulations on that. Yeah. We're just gonna have so many cool certifications if I don't say so myself.
I also want to compliment the students for sticking with the hard readings and, you know,